We're now recording and everyone from the lobby is admitted into the meeting.
Hey, thank you. Hello, I'm David Crofts. I'm the chair of the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel. Just before we commence, for those of you who are present in the who aren't members of the panel or council, just wanted to check. I normally just, if there are people who would like a bit of an introduction to who the panel is and how we operate, and our mandate, are you familiar with those things, or would you like me to go through those, please? Or not go through them?
I'm familiar.
Hi, David. I'm familiar as well.
Okay, so you're all familiar, is that correct? Sorry, Tracy, you had a bit of an echo on your voice.
I'm familiar, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll skip that component, if that's okay. Welcome everyone to the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel on Wednesday, the 20th of March, 2024. Just before we start, we have a number of procedural matters that we'll go through. The first one is an acknowledgement of country. As a sign of respect, the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel acknowledges the traditional custodian of these lands upon which we gather and pays respect to elders past and present. I have received no apologies to the meeting, and my understanding is that we have no conflicts of interest that have been registered by the panel members or by the council officers involved. I'm just checking with the panel members. I have no conflicts of interest. Frank, you're nodding. Cara, yeah, so everyone's acknowledged they don't have a conflict of interest. Thank you very much. The minutes of the previous meeting, that there's a recommendation that panel note the minutes of the meeting of the 6th of March were adopted by the chairperson and have been posted on council's website. Assume that the panel notes that. So I'll now move through to the first item that we have. And that item is item 4.1. But before I do that, I might introduce the members of the panel if I could. There's myself, David Crofts, I'm the chair. There's David Epstein, who's an independent expert, who's just waved. Cara Crayson, who's also an independent expert. Cara, and Frank Bush, who's a community representative. So that's the members of the panel today. We also have some council officers who might chip in from time to time as requested on some of the items. I won't go into detail of those because those people will vary depending on the items. So the first item is item 4.1, DA 2023/1432, 10 Pitt Street, Manly Vale. Alterations and additions to a dwelling house and a Torrens title subdivision to create 2 lots. It's been referred to the panel because the development contravenes a development standard imposed by an environmental planning issue by more than 10%, and we have a recommendation from the council officers that the Northern Beaches Planning Panel refuses the application for reasons set out in the assessment report, which has been posted on council's website. So I do have a number of speakers who have registered. The first one is Claire Waddington. And I also, on behalf in support of the application, also have the applicant, Kate Waddington, is also present. They're the only speakers I have registered. Kylie, is that, I'm sorry, not Kylie, Heidi, is that the case?
Pardon me, David?
Those 2 people I just mentioned, Claire Waddington and Kate Waddington, are the only people who've registered to present?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, just double checking. Excellent. So Claire and Kate, I can see that Claire's online. I can't see Kate at the moment.
I can't see Kate, but I can call her in when you're ready for her to speak if you like.
Well, she may not wish to, I don't know. So Claire, can I ask you, are you giving a presentation or would you prefer to just deal with questions? We also note that you've also made a submission as a result of the assessment report too, which we've had an opportunity to read.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you, David. I'm sorry. I think so. Kate, I believe, is having some issues connecting. So when it's time, Heidi, I think she would probably appreciate being called in if she hasn't managed to connect.
Oh, I've just seen her now. I'm just admitting her into the meeting as we speak.
Perfect. Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks, Heidi.
Sorry, I do not have a formal presentation. I have some points that I would like to raise to the panel for your attention, but no, and happy to accept questions as well.
Okay, so would you like to make, I presume you're presenting on behalf of Kate, or you're both?
Yes, correct. So I am a planner
Yes.
from SJB Planning.
Yes.
I would like to speak to planning issues, and then it was the intent that Kate, she is registered, and my mother,
Yes.
she's a registered engineer, and the applicant would be speaking to matters raised in that respect.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Well, Claire, we're in your hands. So in the points you're making, I'd appreciate if you can keep them concise and down to 3 minutes maximum, please.
Thank you, David, and thank you, panel members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address you today. Speaking in support, as you know, in support of the DA for a two-lot subdivision with associated alterations and additions to an existing dwelling at 10 Pitt Street, Manlyvale. So the primary issue before you today in respect to this DA from a planning matter is the contravention of the minimum subdivision lot size development standard, which I understand to be the primary basis at least, of the reasons for refusal provided in Council's delegated report. Notwithstanding the size of non-compliance, the WEBE test requires that only one of 5 test items must be satisfied in order for a clause 4.6 variation to be justified. Panel members, I understand you would have a copy of the clause 4.6 written request. The basis of our request to vary the minimum lot size, we believe that we can satisfy the test in that the objectives of the development of the zone are achieved notwithstanding non-compliance, but also that the zoning of the land on which the development proposed is unreasonable or inappropriate. With respect to item 5, that the zoning of the land is unreasonable or inappropriate, we believe it is common knowledge that the non-Warringah local environmental plan is due to be superseded by a Northern Beaches local environmental plan. This has not happened. However, because of this, the local environmental plan is more than 13 years old. While we understand, we're not trying to say that the plan is not applicable, it is well and truly out of date and has not been amended to support changes that have come and gone in the locality, one being the introduction of the B line, the other being multiple strategic policies, all geared the area towards densification. And it is not just strategic alignment and other changes in legislation and policy that have shown that the site is suitable for densification. It is also the context of the site being a multitude of other smaller and non-compliant lots in the area. While the 2 lots either side have not been subdivided, they also have existing dual occupancies at the rear that operate as private and separate private and separate dwelling houses. And I think were the panel able to come to the site to visit it, to see it in this context, it would be perhaps more clear that the subdivision of the site and future erection of a dwelling of a comparable size on the site would not really result in any physical or tangible environmental impacts or amenity related impacts on those dwellings, and that is confirmed by the lack of submissions by way of objection by neighbouring properties. Essentially, I don't feel the need to reiterate the contents of the clause 4.6 that we have provided. However, I would be more than happy to answer any questions that the panel may have if it is felt that further justification is needed in any area as to support the variation, or in the other facet of planning issues to deal with the modification. I'd be most happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I gather, Kate, at this stage, do you want to say anything or wait till we have questions?
I'm happy to go whichever way. If you've got particular planning questions, I was just going to speak as, you know, the intent of the application and also as a local engineer. Do you want to get that over and done with?
Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, as Claire said, thanks again for your time today. Look, firstly, I guess as an engineer, I really do appreciate that a lack of easements in previous subdivisions and stuff has caused numerous problems through the Northern Beaches. And I've actually had to design a lot of systems to try and stormwater systems to try and work around these. So yes, an easement is usually the preferred option for a subdivision, and I totally endorse council's trying to obtain one of those, but not in this case where we're looking at direct discharge to a watercourse, and we can actually get gravity drainage to the street that is within the same flood catchment and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, we didn't bring up the environmental issues directly with development engineers. We just sort of said, look, we can do a solution, stormwater solution that is in accordance with their policy. So, you know, as a professional engineer with over 30 years experience, I'm concerned that they're now saying we want a solution that's not in accordance with the policy. I think it's a little bit of an oversight, to be honest, but I strongly believe that should consent be granted, conditioning full compliance with the policy would actually be a much more appropriate solution for this site. Secondly, is the applicant. Sorry, we've invited with you lots of paper. But a brief outline, I guess, of the background and the intent of the application. We've been in Manly Vale for almost 25 years now, and we were in Manly prior to that. So we're deeply embedded and attached to the local community. We want to stay here, and so do our kids. We've got a large property, and the tennis court at the back of it is at the end of its useful life. I must say it's going to take a lot of work to refurbish it very soon. We sort of thought, rather than do that, redeveloping that area, you know, there's an ideal opportunity there to provide a home that's more suited to intergenerational living. You know, it's a large site. It's already attracted a lot of interest from developers. There's certainly a lot of opportunities there, but we'd like to do something that's very much in keeping with local amenity and gives us an opportunity to sort of stay here and actually improve landscape opportunities around the area and the local amenity. So that's it. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll now move on to panel members. Do any panel members have any questions or queries? Tara? Yes, we can't hear you. You need to turn your microphone on, Tara.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Apologise for that. I'm just, I guess, interested to understand. There's a bit of commentary in the report about the driveway and the widths of the driveway, etc., in terms of the assessment. And I can see that this is a proposal to retain and modify the existing dwelling house and then subdivide the block at the rear and put a new one down there. Did you give any consideration in your process to creating two lots side by side? I'm just wondering, like, I know that there's a minimum width requirement of 13 metres again, so I'm just wondering if that's what was motivating you to put it one at the rear, or was it really about trying to maintain the existing dwelling as well as being able to develop another one? So it's really just in terms of looking at that right of way, and obviously that has an impact as well in terms of a non-compliance. So it would obviously have a lesser non-compliance with that aspect, although creating a non-compliance with minimum width if it was the other way. So I'm just interested to hear what process you might have gone through in terms of developing the proposal that you've got before us today.
Look, we'd like to have as little impact on the site as possible. So we sort of felt that it's essentially the northern side of the house. There's a master bedroom and an ensuite. So the proposal would sort of shave those off. We were hoping to convert the existing double garage to a single carport and have a slightly narrower, but still compliant with Australian standards driveway. But essentially, it was, you know, maintain, keep as much of the existing as possible, reduce the impact on the neighbourhood as much as possible. Is where we are coming from. It's, you know, it's a lovely home. It's just not really, you know, it's not suited to intergenerational living, but it is a lovely home. And I, you know, really don't see the benefit in knocking it down. And I think also having two narrower ones is nowhere near. It's much bigger change for the streetscape compared to having a battle axe block. And you know, there's industrial warehouses to the north. There's shop top housing immediately to the east, and only sort of 2 blocks in between us and the industrial units, which are on higher ground and overlooking. So there's not, in terms of the subdivision, we'd be replacing a 6-metre high rusty chain wire fence with, you know, landscaping and a normal domestic dwelling. We just kind of thought, one, we can afford it. That way we can to knock the 2 houses down. We'd have nowhere to live whilst we were doing that, and it's sort of, it's not yeah. Whereas if we can just put the driveway up, it's a much more minimalist solution, I guess, is what we were looking for. Least impact, environmentally, community-wise, and everything like that.
And
Sorry.
I know I know approvals go with the land, but is it? I'm just trying to understand as well. It's not a planning consideration, but is it? It sounds like your intention is to remain there.
Yes, yeah, that's definitely the intention. We love this area. We've, you know, I was born in Manly Vale, born and bred. You know, we're deeply embedded in the local community. Simon, my husband here, is wedded to Manly Cricket Club as well as to myself. And, yeah, we've got no intent. It's a great location. You know, we can walk to the shops, we can walk to the beeline. It's a longer walk to the beach, but you get a swim at the end. And it's a lovely neighbourhood. Yeah, so, you know, we've got Manly Dam just up the hill. I'm working at the Water Resources Laboratory with New South Wales University up at Manly Dam, so I can walk to work. Simon walks from home. I mean, at the moment he's working in the garage. So, you know, that's part of the redesign as well, to be able to have a more appropriate working from home situation. So yeah, we'd like to stay. But this, yeah, we got a quote to redo the tennis court. It was prohibitive. So plan B is we can sort of do the subdivision and sell this to finance the redevelopment of the back into something that's more suitable for us going forward.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I might be to further and answer your question, Cara, I think, yes, it is the most feasible option to keep, to provide a battle axe. It's also more reflective of the existing character of built forms to the north and south of us with those existing secondary dwellings.
Are they second? Oh, I know it's in the report. Secondary dwellings or dual occupancies? Are they? One is very old detached dual occupancy. Okay. The other is a secondary dwelling that functions. Yeah. Okay. Functions as a separate house. Yeah.
And then there's a couple of dual occupancies over the road as well.
Okay.
I've got no further questions, David.
Thank you. Any other questions any panel members have? No?
No, not from me. Thank you.
No? Okay, can I thank you very much. Just to explain the process from here on in, The panel a bit later on this afternoon will be deliberating and determining the item. Then the outcome of that will become available probably early next week, but in the next few days, once council's had an opportunity to process all the appropriate paperwork and the like. But once again, thank you for your contribution today and for your application.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Cara. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Panel members, we now have another next item is item 4.2. So 4.2 I have, which is DA 2023/1518, 34 Castle Circuit Seaforth, the subdivision of one lot into two lots. And I have no objectors, and I have the applicant, Tracy Davey, listed as, Tracy, I can see you're online,
Yes, hi.
as providing a presentation or answering questions. Just double checking with you, Heidi, that's all you have on your list at this stage?
That is correct, yes.
Great, thank you very much. Now, Tracy, just in terms of how we go on from here on, you can make a presentation if you wish, or you have the alternative of just waiting for any questions and answers from any of the any of the panel members. It's really your call. At the end of your presentation, there'll be possibly questions or points of clarification in any case.
Sure. Thank you. I would like to do the presentation, thanks.
Certainly, and as I mentioned with the previous item, if you can be fairly concise and keep it within 3 minutes, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay.
We're all
sure.
yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, panel, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. I understand the panel have reviewed Council's assessment report, as well as the additional information submitted by Levy Planning on the 18th of March. This subdivision application has the support of Council's engineering, New South Wales Rural Fire Service, the Aboriginal Heritage Office, and Ausgrid, and received no public submissions. The application and any future dwelling is able to meet all Council's key planning controls, as demonstrated in the building envelope plans. Firstly, I would like to talk to the Clause 4.6 variation request, and will focus on the LEP Clause 4.1, objectives of the minimum subdivision lot size standard. Commencing with Objective A, the proposed subdivision is not dissimilar to the surrounding subdivisions to the north and east of the site. There are some examples of remnant larger lots to the south, but the majority of the lots in the general vicinity are similar to the subject site. The site achieves a usable building area of 633.7 meters squared, with an access driveway on the southern boundary, essentially presenting to Castle Circuit as a 780 meter squared lot. All important landscape features can be retained, and the application has the full support of the Landscape Department. Moving to Objective B, the submitted building envelope plans show that when developed, proposed Lot 1, fronting Castle Circuit, will present as a single detached dwelling with front setbacks similar to the existing street character. Objective C, the proposed lot sizes are of a sufficient area to be able to retain the existing vegetation and natural features. And finally, Objective D, the subdivision to create an additional dwelling lot maximizes the existing infrastructure and is well located to local facilities. Therefore, this application is capable of meeting the Clause 4.1 objectives of the minimum subdivision lot size standard. I will now focus on the environmental planning grounds of the application. There are particular circumstances of the proposed subdivision on this site which need to be considered, specifically the retention of the existing dwelling. The dwelling can and should be retained for the following reasons. The existing dwelling has good amenity. It would be wasteful and unnecessary to demolish a functional dwelling. Demolition will result in additional and unnecessary building waste to landfill. And further, the Green Building Council of Australia in a 2019 study noted that embodied carbons make up 60% of Australia's built environment. So again, all factors to consider in the retention of the dwelling. The retention of the existing dwelling is further consistent with the objects of the Act, the EPNA Act, to facilitate ecological sustainable development and orderly and economic use of land. Therefore, there is sufficient environmental planning grounds to retain the existing dwelling and facilitate the proposed subdivision layout. In closing, the current subdivision application meets all council's controls, except the numeric requirement for the minimum lot size. Importantly, any future dwelling is capable of meeting all council's planning controls, which we have tested in the building envelope plans. Council have never requested detailed drawings for a future dwelling. If the panel considers that detailed plans would be of benefit, the applicant would be open to providing this additional information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Tracy Davey. Any questions or points of clarification from panel members, please? Cara.
Sorry, I'm off mute.
Yeah. Sorry, Tracy. Sorry, can I just I don't know whether you heard the introduction earlier where I introduced the panel members. Did you?
I did.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead, Cara. Sorry, just double
That's
checking.
okay. Thank you for that. Thanks, Tracy. I understand what you're saying in terms of the detailed plans, and that you'd be happy to provide that. But I'm just I can see Victoria Thompson is also here. I think she's your architect. Is that correct?
Victoria's the applicant.
Oh, the applicant. Okay.
Yeah.
I just, in terms of the building envelope plans, I'm just wondering what level of detail has gone in at this stage in terms of, while you might not have provided that detail to council, how the building envelope may have been informed by a vision for the type of dwelling that could be located on that site. I mean, obviously it's in a particular shape, and so I'm not sure if it's been the council's controls that have been used to form that alongside the trees and the rock faces, or whether you've also considered at this stage how a dwelling may fit within that envelope.
Yeah, we've definitely gone to the next step of exploring what could work on the site, and the starting point would obviously be the existing site and what the constraints are, what the opportunities are of the site. And in particular, we focused on looking at the existing rock outcrop, the trees, and commitment to retain portions of that, and then looking at the planning controls over that. I mean, if you've had an opportunity to look at the architectural plans on the last page, there is some quite detailed numerics on, we made a very specific effort to work within council's planning controls, noting it's only a subdivision application. We're not doing a DA for a dwelling at this stage. So we really wanted to take this chance to get over and above a subdivision application to show to council that actually this is one indicative building envelope of how it could possibly be designed. There could be numerous other options, of course. We simply wanted to prove to council that it's possible. And I think we've done that very convincingly in that we've met every single planning control, height, floor space. Total open space is also quite particular to this LEP, which we've worked through quite carefully. All the setbacks comply. Side setbacks, in the end of the day, are determined by the height of the building wall. So again, we had to just make some assumptions about what that might be. So, if you go into 6.5 or wherever you end up with, that will change the side setback. But definitely the site is a substantial site to accommodate a residential dwelling. 688 is not a small site. So yeah, we're working with architects, not, who would be more than happy to explore further if that was something that the panel would be of assistance. But I think what we've been able to demonstrate is that we can get a building envelope which meets planning controls and retains key environmental aspects of the site, like the main rock outcrop and the trees. So yeah, that's the building envelope was there to demonstrate that point.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes,
David. David and then Frank. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
David.
Yeah, just following on from that discussion, I wonder if I can ask you, is that envelope, and I know we're talking about a bit more detail here, but is that the desired sort of quantity of floor space, you might say, that would be required to make it a viable option, or would you be able to say whether or not it could be a smaller building, given that the site narrows down towards that end quite substantially? And my other question, which is also related to this, is obviously, as has been pointed out, there are a number of constraints, and I can see that the envelope maybe suggests, indicatively that you're trying to negotiate the trees and the rock outcrop and various other factors on site, correctly. But if you jump out of scale and look at it relative to the neighbouring properties, I think that would have been also useful in considering how the building would fit into the local character. The scale of that footprint relative to the other properties, and where it sits relative to those as well in terms of setbacks. So I'm just wondering if that envelope is critical to the viability of the proposal.
No, it's not. This is, foremost, this is a subdivision application.
Yep.
Yeah. So the building envelope is just that. It's just indicative. We could have possibly done a number of designs.
Yeah, but it's showing sort of the maximum, or it's purely related to the the requirements.
The planning controls. Yeah.
The planning
literally
controls.
we just looked at obviously what. The FSR in this area is 0.4, so we worked that.
Yep.
And obviously have exceeded the height.
And the
setback is 6, which is consistent.
Mm.
No, look, I think yeah, to be very clear, the building envelope is not part of the application. It's purely indicative to show what could be done on the site. That's all. And I guess to give some comfort to council and to panel that it is a compliance scheme.
Mm.
So we know that it's possible to achieve a compliance scheme on the site.
Mm.
Obviously, yeah, if you're looking at the detail, in architecture, you may come at it with a whole different, could come with a number of other options. But this is just to give comfort to council that it can work within their controls. We're not exceeding anything.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question just in terms of David, his question sort of also referred to the context of what's being proposed and how it relates to the surrounding dwellings, etc. Are you able to just respond briefly on that, please?
Yeah, sure. Are you perhaps also referring to the shape of what you're seeing?
The position and the shape, I guess.
Okay, so in terms of position, let's start with that. In terms of setback, that's consistent with what is. Well, that is the council control, 6 meters. So we've kept to that. So that is consistent with what council require, because that's what the DCP says.
Yeah, but I guess the thinking would be, I suppose, and if you were to lodge a DA in the next stage, for a house, you'd have to show a streetscape. You'd have to show how it actually fits within the context in more detail.
No, of course, that's absolutely valid.
But it's hard to sort of avoid those issues. There is that sort of overlap that occurs naturally in considering, what's viable for the property and how it may or may not fit within the context. So, that's why I said on a bigger scale would allow you to actually relate the footprint to other buildings. If you were sort of to provide a drawing that's instead of 250, 1 in 250, it was 1 in 500. It would show
we would be more than happy
understanding of the context.
David, unfortunately, we never got an opportunity from council. And in fact, I think I raised the point earlier that in the RFI from council, no planning issues were raised at all.
Yeah.
So the first time we heard about any planning concerns was actually in reading the assessment report. So we'd be more than open to exploring some of these further. Unfortunately, council never raised it.
Okay. Any other
you.
queries or questions? Frank, sorry, yes, you're in queue, weren't you? Okay.
You're on mute.
You're still on mute, Frank. I can't hear you.
Right. Okay. That
You're
better?
right now. Yep.
Yeah,
Perfect.
thank you. I just had a very small question. My understanding is that there is a garage, a garage under the existing dwelling, which is not.
Yes, there is a garage space. Yes, that's correct.
Is that not acceptable for use or available for use?
It is not currently used as such. They use it as a workshop at the moment. And it's a single space.
Right.
Yeah. So it's slightly compromised, but it does exist. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I think the intent of that was, if I can read your mind a little bit, Frank, is that there are a couple of car parking spaces proposed in front, that is to the east of the existing dwelling as part of the subdivision, which of course is then impinging on the proposed lot at the front. Can you perhaps describe as to why that's the case, please?
Yeah, we explored a number of options with our engineers, and it's to do with the grade of the driveway as you joining the existing house. It's actually fairly sharp and steep as you come down. And actually, at the moment, these two spaces are used for car parking. So humans, just in terms of habit, will go to what is convenient, and where it is located now, it's flat. It's right in front of the door, and it actually just works from a utility point of view. So it's a little, we tested a few options, and in terms of grade, in terms of moving in and out of the site in a forward direction with the engineers, this was definitely the best option that we could. So it was the most functional option.
So
I can appreciate that it doesn't look, kind of nice and neat, but it actually is, this works because it's actually what is being done at the moment.
So when you refer to grade being not quite
The slope.
sorry, the slope, what sort of slope are we talking about, please? Given there's a constructed garage there that clearly must have been used at some stage.
Yeah. Trying to grab the engineering drawings. So there's a longitudinal section shown on the engineering drawings, and that it moves from, we've got a 9.2% to 2 to 0.5 to minus 2.5. So it just depends where we're reading it from. But that is, that's sort of the grades that we're covering.
So in terms of the current garage, was it just not usable? I'm just trying to work out sort of whether there actually is why that's not viable at the moment, or some sort of solution similar to that.
Yeah, look, I guess it would require some grading work on the slope to get it to meet council requirements, engineering requirements. It would require more work to do that. What you've got at the moment is pretty much it's a pretty even flat site. So you can drive flat on, you would have seen it when you had a look at the site.
Yes.
Whereas the actual topography of the site starts to steepen as almost in line with the house, actually. If you had walked that driveway, you'd see as you almost get to the beginning of the house, it starts to steepen as it adjoins the dwelling. So it's really to do with that grade that is not that easy to navigate. Not to say it can't be done, but it isn't that easy at the moment. Yeah. It would require some work, some grading.
Okay, thank you. Any other
Yeah,
questions at all?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, can I thank you, Tracy, and also Victoria for being part of the public session. As I mentioned earlier, that the panel will go into recess into a non-public session where we determine the application, and then what will happen is that council will notify you in the coming days, possibly early next week, depending on how rapidly all the paperwork resulting from the meeting is able to be processed and so on. So once again, thank you very much, and I believe that's the end of the public part of the meeting. Can I ask panel members to stay online, please, just briefly?
Mhm.